What's your favorite book you've read and why? The Count of Monte Cristo. A fantastic tale of revenge, and if it's worth it. I completely agree, this book is always a top recommend. The story of ultimate revenge is beautiful and sad. It will leave you just as broken as the characters in the book, and I love it for it. What is revenge, if not the equal act? A chance to smooth again a crooked line. A deal you make with you yourself, a pact, and what's the right for such a wrong as mine? A secret knife begets another knife, a shrouded sin begins another sin, a stalled or stolen life deserves a life, defeated, cheated kin and act akin. And though you call revenge the poison cup, the dark for which you open up the door, I'd lift the chalice near my lips to sup, and drown the world for all it did before. I dug 2 graves too vast and great to flee. And one's for you, the other one's for me. The Redwall series by Brian Jacques. I love the adventure and questing and figuring out riddles. The way he described the feasts, God, I always wished I could experience a feast like that. The way he would write the different dialects for the different animals was so much fun. They are young adult books, but I'm nearing 4 decades and still love them. Been reading them since I was just a wee lad. Olalia. For Redwall. Edit, wow. I just woke up to see that this has blown up and I am just overwhelmed. Thank you all for the love and awards. So many replies. I was trying to respond to some, but I'm just too overwhelmed, a blubbering, weeping mess. Tears of love and joy, I assure you. Just know that I am at least reading every last reply and weeping with joy at how much love there is for Mr. Jacques and his works. The Hobbit. I remember my dad reading it to me when I was really little before they got divorced, so when I read it on my own I remembered some parts from then. Plus, it's a great story that I loved. I read it in middle school. I then reread it as an adult in anticipation of the movies, and I was riveted at points and couldn't put it down. I couldn't remember what happened and was completely on the edge of my seat. Then the movies came out and they were bad. I would really recommend looking up one of the many fan edits of the Hobbit movies. They cut out all the bullshit and left just the stuff that is in the books, and it is much, much better. Shame on them for trying to stretch it out and make more money. The Tolkien cut is good, stays as true to the book as possible and puts all of the extra material into a separate story. The Name of the Wind. I was jobless for a while, super depressed, and close to homeless. That book played a huge part in getting me through all of that. I still reread it from time to time. Still waiting for his 3rd book. Who isn't? I think he's still waiting to write it. As many questions a wise man's fear didn't answer, I can't blame him. I don't think a 3rd book could possibly answer everything in a satisfying way. Not possible, unless it's like 2,000 pages long. He dug himself into a huge corner by limiting himself to a trilogy when clearly the ideas he wants to explore require more. I don't think he limited himself to a trilogy. But I do think that he is either deliberately waiting for a TV show to boost sales of later books, or that he is paralyzed with fears of inadequacy following a decade of crowdsourced problem solvers either solving his great mystery before it could be written or coming up with grander ideas than had originally had. Honestly, if it were one of the last two, I would fully sympathize. Imagine the love and pride that goes into a creation of this scale, and the need to surpass what a bunch of anonymous amateurs put together on countless hours of rereads and internet discussions. Kitchen Confidential. It's just so honest. The way he reflects about his career while dropping in little bits of knowledge of how the culinary world works. I still need to read this. His death is the only celebrity death that actually made me emotional. I have not read any of his books, but his show was the only show that my wife and I religiously watched together. We love to travel and have several times gone to places on his recommendation. I feel like I will get emotional reading the book. I thought of buying an audiobook of his, as I drive a lot for work, so at any given time I am usually reading a heavy content book while listening to a novel or easy listening business book, but I think I would get upset listening to him talk. Same here, dude. He was an institution and a hero to many of us restaurant folk. I actually welled up when I found out it was a suicide. That was heartbreaking. East of Eden. I learned a lot about people and why they are motivated to do the crazy things they do. I also learned that there are people who are just straight up rotten. Can't be fixed. I think it's chapter 3 where he describes Kate as a monster, comparing that some people are missing an arm or a leg. Kate is missing something in her mind which makes her evil. When my mother and wife were decorating my daughter's nursery, they insisted we put a quote over her crib which I felt was cheesy played out. I gave in, on the condition I got to pick the quote. Such a beautiful quote, it's painfully tragic knowing what it's about. It is, and for me incredibly relevant. But yeah, unfortunate who it is describing Katie, and at a time that Adam was completely blinded by it to see her for what she was. Not kidding, I was listening to this book on Audible while my wife was pregnant. I thought I was having a panic attack when the part came up with Kathy when she was little in the barn with the two boys. Just thinking that Therese, even a slight, minuscule possibility my daughter could be a manipulative, evil person like that. Hyperion by Dan Simmons. Fabulous sci-fi imagination, filled with characters, worlds, technology, politics, and innocence which invoke the most vivid movie reel of a story in my mind each time I read it and the others in the trilogy. Update, Quats. Blew up more than I expected, thanks for the gold kind stranger. Edited a word. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, just a nice satirical book that takes the piss at every turn and looks into the mind and motivations. Where else can we learn the secret to flying, is to throw yourself at the ground and miss? The ships hung in the sky in much the same way that bricks don't. The story so far, in the being, the universe was created. This has made a lot of people very angry and has been widely regarded as a bad move. Jurassic Park is the only novel I've sat down with and consumed within 24 hours. I love the movie, but the book is so much more detailed, and the characters so much deeper, and in some cases totally different. The Phantom Tollbooth. It was fun to read as a kid, and then I picked it up again as I got older and noticed so many little details that kept it fun and interesting. Where the Red Fern Grows, rips your heart into pieces. We read this in elementary school. They told us not to read ahead, but I did, and boy am I glad I did, because it saved me the embarrassment of crying in class. I cried in class and my teacher pulled me aside later to make sure I was okay. The same thing happened to me. We reached the end and my 6th grade teacher had to pull me aside because I was crying too much. It brought back too many memories of my dog. Animal Farm. 1. It was a satire too. I knew what it was mocking. 3. It was actually a good story. We read this in high school. The student teacher didn't know it was an allegory for the Russian Revolution and taught the book like it was just standard fiction. What? #X200B. We also discussed the book in school, but how did the teacher not realize it was an allegory? If you search for the book online, it is the first thing you find. I really don't know. It was funny too because we were simultaneously learning about the revolution in our social studies class. I definitely had some clunker student teachers, especially since we really didn't have behavioral problems to deal with. Ender's Game. I was 16 and a typical jock. Not a reader at all. My chemistry teacher told me to read it. Blew my mind. Yeah, I know Card is an extremely questionable human being. My 16-years-old self isn't changed by what the guy is now. The sequel, Speaker for the Dead, is amazing as well. Haven't read the third one yet, maybe I'll wait another 10 years to pick that up. I actually prefer Speaker for the Dead, I think Card does as well. The main reason he re-released Ender's Game, it was originally a novella, was a deal he made with the publisher to get SFTD published. Anyway, the following novels Xenocide and Children of the Mind get a little weird, especially Cotton. But I'll die on the hill that Speaker for the Dead is his best work. It's crazy to hear Card's personal beliefs because a lot of his writings, especially in Speaker, is people coming to terms with their feelings and how that drives us as individuals. Just doesn't line up with the crazy Mormon beliefs he holds in real life. Very odd. I've always believed SPFD was by far the best work. Ender's Game and the entire Ender's Shadow series are hella riveting, but SPFD is just a tier above.